Thanks for being here. This is our third interview in the studio. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Mike. I'm the director and co-founder of By Diffusion. By Diffusion is a consultancy that helps organisations change and grow. And we're about people, consulting and coaching. There are three pillars. Through people, we help you build and evolve your teams with recruitment and talent management. And through consulting, we help you unite your people behind a clear vision, strategy and plan. And through coaching, we help you and your people to develop and collaborate for success. By Diffusion is a product of me and my business partner Sat, and we're trying to look to freshen up the consultancy world with a lens on people. People-led change in particular, and we think it's a fundamental part of how organisations grow and change. Everyone talks about tech these days, but our view is people deliver tech and people consume it. So it's at the heart of everything that we do, but without the people, what have we got? We spent 20 years in industry, and we thought now's the time to go and do something by ourselves. So we set up By Diffusion. We also set up and founded One for the City, and I'm really pleased that Glean are part of that. So in creating our business, we wanted to help foster a more inclusive and regenerative economy that redistributes wealth. And by doing business responsibly with people and planet in mind, we wanted to help create a brighter future, maybe even inspire others to do the same. And that's why we founded One for the City. It's a donation and member platform that helps support local people, and with every project that's undertaken and anyone that works with us, they contribute to. So we're a founding member, and we've committed 1% of our revenue since its inception. So the 1% will go to Leeds Community Foundation, and they then help distribute that through a number of projects. And we're also aligned to Leeds City Council and their inclusive growth strategy. So we make sure that we're doing the right thing in the right place. Leeds is a prospering city, but there's also some of the poorest postcodes in the UK here. So this is about helping level up. So, Josh and Dave, thanks for being with us. Thanks for being here. Tell me a bit about Glean.
So Glean, we're a learning technology company based in Leeds. We're a team of about 100 now. Good number of us based in Leeds, but with staff across the company. Our mission is really all about making comprehending and retaining knowledge easier and quicker. And that really comes together in how we empower individuals to learn confidently and effectively from content. Our product, also named Glean, is really there to help students of all abilities, really to make sure they can learn effectively from classes and lecture content. And now, a global company, we have over 800 universities and colleges all around the world who support their students through our product. It's great to be part of One for the City. I think Leeds has been a really important part of our journey, and it's amazing to give back as a company to the city that's really supported us.
And we've got 16 other organisations part of that now, so it's building strong. There's a real sense of pride, isn't there, in Leeds and businesses coming together. And it's interesting already that we're seeing those organisations that are part of One for the City start to work with each other as well. So even that how regenerative that's been in creating new networks has been super powerful. How long has Glean been going?
We've been going since 2007. So though I'm not one of the original founders, I'm now co-CEO and have been with Glean. This will be my 10th year as part of the company. Wow. So a big part of the journey.
Yeah, and lots more to come.
Indeed.
Okay, so what we're trying to do through the work that we're doing with By Diffusion, and particularly this podcast, is I guess make conversations about strategy and change a little bit more accessible, try and simplify them. So we're going to explore the main topic, which we've talked about a few times in our previous meetings. But the challenge is 3 questions around that main topic, try and answer it and get an outcome or output within that 10-minute slot. And let's create one takeaway from each of those questions. So our title today, No More Excuses, Exploring the Real Power of Culture and Getting Things Done. And this came about on the back of a conversation. I think I was at a networking session. I was chatting to somebody and I told them about what By Diffusion did. And I got the response was, oh, well, we haven't really got time for that fluffy stuff. I think they were a founder like not too far into their own journey, not quite as long as you guys, as 10 years, but they said we just have to get things done. I was a little bit shocked, I thought the world had moved on a little bit. And my view, and certainly our view, and I think we're aligned on this, is that people are your business. And without them, without people engaged and motivated to do good work and represent your company and your brand and everything your business is about, I'm not sure you're going to do particularly well. Or certainly in the long game, if you've not got your people on board, you're not really going to be too successful. And it's what I wanted to chat to you guys about. Josh, just on that, just tell me a little bit about your career journey and how you ended up at Glean and why you chose to be there.
I've not been here for 10 years. So I'm about 6 months in, maybe a little bit longer into my Glean time. But yeah, so before Glean, I was a software consultant. I ran my own software consultancy for about 14 years before joining Glean. But I joined Glean as their CTO. And yeah, I think the thing that brought me into it was the ed tech angle, the tech for good angle, and obviously what they're doing with the culture.
Yeah. Where did you start your career journey?
In a Leeds company called Dubbit, actually, which was they're doing incredibly well now with loads of virtual world kind of online gaming stuff. I think Roblox is their main sort of focus at the moment. But yeah, I started at Dubbit. Started as a Ruby on Rails developer there when I was doing university in Leeds. So I've been in Leeds for almost 20 years now. Home, yeah. When everyone asks, it's easier than saying Derby. It's much easier.
I'm spending so much time in Derby at the minute. God. Yeah. What about your leadership journey? Obviously, started as a developer, but that, I guess, transition into leadership. I mean, we should all be leaders, right? But I guess it's now in the role of CTO.
Yeah, so through the consultancy kind of business, I did a lot of hands-on stuff, building platforms and products, but then went more into the sort of leadership space, building teams to build products, and then more recently over the last 5 years, the sort of VP of engineering, head of engineering, director of engineering sort of roles. Because it was quite interesting to build the teams that build the tech, and then look at how you kind of define some of the pillars that'll go on to define the culture. That you can't really set the culture in kind of business strategy. It needs to happen reasonably organically, I think. But also you can do some things that support the creation of better culture.
Yeah, I mean, you set the tone, right? It's kind of if that's your outlook, you're setting the tone for it, aren't you?
Exactly.
I like that. Build the teams, build the tech. You've not even give Hey a plug.
I know, shocking. So, thanks, Mike.
That's okay.
So the other side to this is that I've spent the last probably 12 years building communities in Leeds. So regular events through a company I founded called Hey Presents, but then there's also a once a year single track conference for developers, designers, and leaders, which is called All Day Hey, which is just a single track conference of about 8 talks during the day in the centre of Leeds. Which kind of goes to create this nice community where people can share stories and inspire each other, and also learn about sort of emerging trends and kind of, I guess, culture.
Yeah. Cool. Great. When is it? All day.
I'm not very good at this, am I, Mike?
No, good job, I'm here.
It's the 2nd of May this year. 2nd of May this year, yeah.
Brilliant.
It's just that there's always some sort of thing going on. I get sick of plugging my events sometimes.
Glad to help. Dave, what about you? Obviously you've been there with Glean for 10 years. What's your journey been through Glean, and before that, where did you start?
Yeah, so it's definitely not the most typical journey to where I am now. I came to Leeds similarly about 20 years ago, but to study music. And it was, I think, after graduating, I did a number of different jobs. So went and explored a number of things. Realized there was actually how do you get stuff done with people was what really sort of energized me, and so initially got into sort of some more operations management jobs, and it was then having known Dave Tucker, my co-CEO and founder. We'd been speaking about business, and he approached me and said, "I need someone like you in the business," and so that's how I came to be working for Glean. So, and at that point, I think I was really apprehensive, going and working with a friend. Is that a wise idea? But very quickly realized that actually, me and Dave, even though we're both now with the same title and the same name, and both have beards, we couldn't see more similar. Actually, are quite different in the way we see the world.
So has that been helpful to come together as co-CEO then? Like
Yeah, so I think again, sort of, I think our partnership's being one of sort of seeing the world quite differently over the years, and it was realizing that both his passion to create a great company that's also great, that's a great place to work, but also having a real impact on the world was what inspired me to want to get involved in what he was trying to do.
Brilliant, cool. You're doing good stuff. We want to delve into the intricacies of combining people and culture with operational and strategic aspects of running a business. So maybe, given the response that I got at that networking event, could feel quite conflicting, but I think we're all aligned of that they need to run side by side. So let's go with the first question. So at Glean, or like throughout your career and, the things that you've seen, how have you managed to maintain and elevate your commitment to that people and culture agenda in and amongst the pressure of building a business? Because ultimately you want to make products that people want, people love to use, and then there's the profitability of that. You're still a commercial organization.
Yeah.
So yeah, how have you managed to maintain that? Where do we want to start?
Yeah, I mean, as you just said there, I really don't see the two things as intention, but actually as two things that work together. And I think how you both think about your people and your culture is what can drive your business on. And I think we're completely bootstrapped as a business, and so how effective your people are is directly proportional to actually the profit you're making.
Yeah.
And I think that's even more so in tech, where your biggest asset is your people, and that is something that I think sort of really lucky when coming into Glean that Roger Tucker, the original founder of the business, even though I think sort of wasn't explicit, was really implied in the way he wanted to run the business, was really making sure that people were fulfilled in their work, really ensure that people felt they were able to do their best work, was a real key part of the culture that he built up. And then definitely through the years, it's been a really key bit of, okay, how do you make sure that we're continuing to perform as a business, was not just, okay, what does the profit line say, but actually how are people doing? How are people actually adding value to what you're doing? And so I think it's funny, sort of thinking about that in as intention is almost counterintuitive. I think through my whole career, it's always been, okay, actually, why aren't we performing? Why aren't we maybe seeing the results we want to financially? And that probably has often an underlying people issue to it. So actually see how those things are really sort of one and the same things.
Yeah, you can't really mandate high performance culture though, can you?
No.
It doesn't really work that way. Yeah, I think just setting out the sort of non-negotiables in terms of that space to build the culture. I think, Google's classic 20% time, that was always protected. And I think obviously we've come along since then, but I think it's also just how you ensure that you prioritize the things that build culture. Delivery will always be there. There'll always be pressures. And obviously you can factor that into your sort of strategy and how you run the kind of weekly cadence of delivery. But yeah, just making some of those culture building moments non-negotiables is really important.
What kind of, obviously, how are you, about a year in?
Oh, 6 months. Sorry.
6 months.
It feels like a year.
Yeah. What were the kind of first things that you started thinking about as you were, I guess, thinking about building your team or like evolving it, developing the maturity of that team, taking that on? Because obviously if you inherited it, you've not like got a blank sheet of paper. Yeah,
I mean, fortunate to inherit it for once though. I think that inheriting a team that was really reasonably set up, the leadership in that team is really strong. We have really strong heads of product, head of engineering, head of UX. They're all doing incredible things with the culture already. So it's not like you have to come in and do, rapid transformation of that. But yeah, I think it's about making sure you don't miss, even just the regular stuff. Like you don't miss the weekly check-ins with your team. You don't rush those meetings. You make sure it has the time and space to flesh out issues. And also just supporting their own growth, their own learning. We've done a lot of work over the last 6 months on the career progression frameworks that we've got, looking at, making sure we preference the management tracks as well as the IC tracks. And, anyone can reach that sort of level of authority and seniority, regardless of whether you want to be a manager or not. And I think some of the things like that indicate, to the team that you really care about their growth as well, which is super important.
And what about that, I guess the balance between, prioritizing work and the fact that, these are human beings showing up at work.
Yeah.
It's very easy to kind of get caught in the excitement of what's going on, and that's great with the energy and the enthusiasm that people will bring, especially with the culture that you create. But there's almost a bit where probably need to temper some of that as well. How do you where do your check-ins make sure that that's balanced?
Burnout is a real challenge when someone's so driven to try and solve these problems.
Yeah.
And how you get that balance is really important. I think, if anyone can really look at how people can work differently, it's people who look at how people learn differently as well. And I think that's a really good comparison. So, when we're looking at how our team want to work, we're looking at all the options that we can possibly, work with to make it as flexible as possible, to make sure that they can work in an environment that's the best for them.
Yeah.
And obviously, they'll want to do the best work of their lives here, hopefully. So it's just making sure that we're as flexible with that too. But yeah, you've got to keep an eye as well. Burnout's real when people really care about solving that problem.
Yeah. Anything to add on that?
I can share a little bit of my own personal journey in burnout, and I think it's something that I've tried to share quite openly in the business, is that it's really easy when you're involved to get so stuck in that actually you can give way too much. And I think sort of how you have that dialogue with your team is so important. How you sort of humanize the normal aspects of life, the things that we all go through challenges, and giving space to that. I think there's that need to humanize. I think sometimes it's really easy to just see inputs and outputs, or just to see people as their work selves. And I think it's that remembering that actually there's something outside of that we all have those other things, and actually how do you both accommodate for those, but also allow them to bring some of that to the workplace is so key in how you treat people.
Because you've experienced some of that yourself, and do you find it easy to spot it in others?
I think sometimes I think it shows up really different for different people. So I think sort of when I've seen it in other people, it's usually because it shows up for them in the same way. And I think sort of for some people, actually sort of burnout can come from different things. I definitely have spotted it in a few people where I've been like, hey, actually, like, watch yourself here. You might want to think about how you're using your time, or actually, are you taking on too much, and that therefore then impacting both your ability to do your work, but also potentially longer term having an impact on your own health. And I definitely got to the point at one point where it was impacting my health, and I think that for me was the turning point, and going, hang on a second, this is not sustainable. And I think as a business, like, though we've been around for a long time and we've been growing reasonably steady, and actually I think sometimes businesses can treat both employees but also what they're trying to do as a race, whereas actually it's about creating something that's more sustainable. You're not running a sprint, you're running a marathon, you're running an ultra marathon as a business. And you've got to think about actually how you sustain that over the long term, not just in the short term.
I like Gwen, our head of engineering, is an absolute force of nature, and I love it because we start every week with a meeting, and she says, how are our humans this week? How are our humans doing? And I know it's a bit cliche, but like the fact that there's no shortcuts really to knowing your team and looking for those tells that Dave mentions in terms of are they burning out? Some of the behaviour might be different from last week. Is there a reason for that? Are they okay?
But I think that's what creates the authenticity around the culture that you're creating. Because people spotting it or having an awareness of it, willing to talk about it, like their own experiences, that vulnerability allows other people to show up. Like, it's so powerful. So, even if you're not showing up on your best day, you decided to show up and say, I'm not so well, or, like, I'm a bit, my outlook isn't as positive as it was yesterday. Just knowing that, I think other people will then say, what can I do to help? Or, do you need to be here? And then you come together to collaborate as a team to figure out, well, what it is you're going to do and how you prioritize, and I guess understand what is important. I think that creates then and we'll maybe come to it later, but that longevity around of the people that are in your organization, them sticking around and doing good work. And they don't always have to be I'd question whether they should always be at 100% or even 90 or 80, but they're showing up to do good work because they care and they know that they're cared about. And that's that bit around it's a bit fluffy, going back to that challenge earlier. We don't do this fluffy stuff. If you don't do that, you just won't have people there to do the stuff that builds the foundations for you to go from your 100 people to, let's say, your 200 people. It's reflected, in my view, it's reflected in your brand, it's reflected in your products. You know, people see it and feel it. That your customers, am I getting something? There's a quality issue. Why? You know, I'm not going to be an advocate for you. Your staff don't be advocates for that talent plan that you've got, that recruitment plan. It's felt in every way through your brand. So
yeah,
I think it's so important. And I think then you go on to EQ, you know, the emotional intelligence, just kind of having your senses around how people are and what they're doing and what they need. It's so important, isn't it, in kind of growing and scaling a business. And I guess you must be mindful of that going from, you know, that 10-year journey, you're now at 100 and where you go next. So how do you build that into that top level strategy? Like, yeah, the thinking there.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think there's a few things through the journey that I think sort of both deliberately done, but also I think have more organically happened. Which so I suppose in terms of developing my own EQ has definitely been utilizing stuff like coaching.
Yeah.
I think sort of values that I think we have as a business is that how you make sure you're building trust, that being a really key part of it. Looking at how do you build that co-understanding. So again, utilizing tools that really allow you to build a better understanding of both how you are emotionally, as well as then actually potentially where other people are.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we now embed coaching as a key manager skill. So every manager in Glean will have been through some coaching training.
Yeah.
So they're able to use coaching as a key management tool rather than just managing through direction. And I really believe that that's a key skill, both in terms of really enabling people to be most effective, and managers to be most effective in supporting their teams. But I think most of all, you've really got to. I think as a leader, you've got to get good at introspection and making sure you're able to reflect on your own journey. And I think that's been a key part for me, and where again I've benefited from coaching myself is you learn how you are, and I think sort of how you show up is sets, as you said, sets the tone, and that's really important in terms of thinking about where you are. And I think that realizing when you're not doing the best work, or actually that as a leader you're not turning up and performing at 100% all the time, and that you give yourself, sometimes it's very easy to hold yourself at such a high standard that you're not particularly self-forgiving. And I think that's a really key element to both exhibit in the culture and encourage that within the teams. And I think when you're able to do that, that also gives you a little bit more of, I suppose, appreciation for other people of where they may be at, and you don't necessarily know where other people are at when you're sort of aware of potentially the impact of your own both mental health and emotional state coming into the environment.
I think just to pull on a point you made earlier as well around that sort of utilization of people. You're never going to have 100% of everyone 5 days a week. You definitely shouldn't have that. I think it comes from that old school sort of resource utilization on a spreadsheet. How can we split these people over these projects? So I think being able to clearly communicate, you know, from a leadership perspective, what your expectations are on the team, understanding that sometimes, you know, there's flex needed and people will not be, you know, even like 50% some days, and that's okay. And the team collectively can pick that up. I can't remember the way I saw it, but there's a really powerful way of communicating it. I think it was between partners, and you know, you get home from work and you're like, I'm a 20 this morning.
Yeah, is it Brené Brown?
That was it, Brené Brown.
That's it, yeah.
And like even just that sort of communication, like my battery is ultimately so low, I'm not going to contribute much today. Or actually, I'm an 80, I've got you. It's cool.
Yeah. That's so powerful. I think just that how do you share it, but that thing of how do you come together to collaborate. You know, don't use those words at home when you're talking to your wife, right? Or your partner.
There's a time and a place, obviously.
How are we collaborating today? But yeah, I think it's so important. But again, it's just like that safe space, psychological safe space. Say, you know, this is what I need, or like, you know, just putting your hand up to ask for some help. I think that all like leans into culture, and they, I guess, being able to have an honest conversation. Okay, so I think we're about 10 minutes on that, maybe a bit longer. Going back to the question, let's check if we answered it and what's like maybe the key takeaway on this one. how have we managed, or how have you managed to maintain and elevate your commitment to people and culture in and amongst the pressure of building and scaling a business, making products that people want and need, and ensuring that the business is still profitable? Key takeaways there. I think we've answered the question really well, but
I think so.
I think the big thing is around like that EQ, isn't it? Like, you know, trying to be tuned in to your team.
That's the thing. I think, you know, when you look at how I'm looking at use my team as a reference, but when you know your strengths and weaknesses as well within the team. So if, you know, some people are stronger at other things than others, and having those members that are happy to pick those items up, or know that if someone's struggling with something, they can step in. And I think it's just about sort of, I guess, spending the time getting to know your team and making sure that they have the time to do that themselves as well. I'm not just talking about socials and pizza after work and stuff. I'm talking about, like, you know, just building the time into the working week so they have those moments to, you know, debrief on something or understand more about how one of them deals with problems. And,
Anything to add?
Yeah, and I think to build on that, I think it's that addition of as we're talking about knowing yourself. And I think as a leader in a business, when things get difficult, when there is a challenge, it's really easy to default to behaviors that in yourself that aren't helpful. And actually, how do you make sure that you're able to scale effectively? Is not that, okay, we're not doing well as a business, or there's a business challenge. Okay, what I need to do is just put loads of pressure on people, and often that's not the thing that helps. But actually being able to know how to react in that, because often you're stressed, you're being pushed, that actually you need to deliver the results yourself, and how you manage your own emotions to then be able to lead people effectively through that challenge is such a key point of important. Making sure that as you're trying to scale that business, as you're trying to really achieve what you're doing, that you're managing that effectively. And I think probably some of the times where I feel I haven't led the business well has been when you feel stuck in a problem, and then you actually are taking people in the wrong direction. And so that element of knowing yourself, knowing how you're going to respond in difficult situations is such an important thing to work on. That
self-awareness bit, like, you know, I guess like that check-in and having that is so important. Again, I think it goes back to that point around EQ, you know, over IQ. The other thing that I'd say, and I think what I've picked up from your conversations before we move on, is that it's not all on you as a senior leadership team.
Absolutely.
Like, you're building the capability and autonomy within your team for everyone to kind of have a voice in what's going on and how. Again, really powerful stuff. And just to then acknowledge it and keep the conversation going around that, especially reflecting on when things might not be going so well. There's the power on that collective to come together to say how we might fix it. You know, that traditional hierarchy is challenged by what you've created in your culture. Sound all right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing is, operationally, you want to reduce the possibility of big bang failure. So it's about those smaller iterations on those moments to make sure that things are healthy. If they're not, how can you learn from failure, or how can you celebrate failure in some aspects? And I think, again, it's as a leader, sometimes you forget that you have a team to work with, and you have to solve all the problems yourself. And actually just kind of go into the team and go, I'm completely stuck on this. I really don't know where we go with it. Like, can we talk through it?
That humility to do that.
Absolutely.
It's like, and that's the removal of ego, isn't it? It's like, you know, you kind of leave that at the door. That's what a good leader does. You kind of leave it at the door. I think there's always like a little bit at play. You know, that's the drive and energy that kind of creates the direction, isn't it? But yeah, there's the willingness, again, the vulnerability to go, how do we solve this together? And it's all right to, you know, that we might not get it right.